You're listening to the World Footy Net Podcast. Welcome to the World Footy Net Podcast. You can email us at podcast@worldfooty.net or alternatively, post your comments on the World Footy Net Facebook page.
Hello everyone, this is Dre Footy, and this is another special edition insert for the WFN Weekly Podcast. And tonight we're going to focus on a subject that has created a bit of controversy between traditionalists of the world game of football and those who feel that football in the United States needs to take a different path than the rest of the world. Now, the subject is on the idea of open leagues and unlimited clubs versus closed leagues and team franchises. In the past, we've touched on this subject in podcast, and we're now going to focus several episodes on the subject to see if we can cut through some of the myths and misinformation and find the truth of what is best for football in the United States. Now, tonight, this panel includes those who would like to see open leagues in America. We have Ted Westervelt from Soccer Reform. Ted, how are you doing tonight?
Good. How are you, Dre?
Doing very well. We also have Matt Purvis, who recorded a very compelling YouTube piece that we shared a while back on our Facebook page. And the subject of that video is why he, as an American, found it difficult to follow the domestic game. So, Matt, thanks for joining us. And how are you tonight?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Good deal. Thank you. Welcome aboard.
Yeah.
And, of course, we have the infamous Hooligan Broom, our own WFN correspondent. He joins us to add a few of his own thoughts to the discussion. And, Hooligan, how are you doing today?
I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm trying to relax and calm down. If anyone wants to follow me on Twitter, my handle is Hooligan Broom.
Good deal. Good deal. Thanks for that. Well, before I get into some of the nuts and bolts on the topic, maybe I can get both Ted and Matt to tell us a little bit about yourselves. I'll start with Ted Westervelt. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your relationship to the game.
I'm an Aries. I like long walks on the beach.
You hear that, ladies?
And I got interested in soccer. Really? Well, I mean, I played soccer in high school, and I played soccer a little bit in college and JV. I got really fired up in the '94 World Cup and kind of went from there. I run pothunting.com, which reaches back and tries to promote some of the old school 1920s through 1970s soccer in the United States. And part and parcel of that research and everything that goes along with it has led me down the path of promotion and relegation.
Good deal. Well, thanks for that. And also, Matt Purvis, tell us a little about yourself.
You know, I played as a little kid. Once you get older, at least in the South, soccer kind of takes a back seat. But when I was around 15 years old, this is about 5 or 6 years ago, I turned on ESPN one day after school, saw a Champions League match on. And the way that soccer was just presented, at least in the European format, just the crowds and the atmosphere and everything was totally different from the MLS that I had been seeing on television.
Right.
And so I watched a few more of those games, and that came right before the '06 World Cup in Germany. And after that, I was pretty much hooked. And I've been following the European leagues ever since. And as I've said in my video, I've just fallen in love with the system that they work in with promotion and relegation.
Yeah, that's similar to my own story.
Yeah,
that's very interesting. And of course, the audience out there will be familiar with Hooligan, but what they may not be familiar with is some of the work he's doing with the youth. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Jay?
Yeah. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Jay Broom. I'm also an Aries. Like long walks on the beaches. I've been playing footy since I was 5 years old. I've never played or participated in any other sport. I truly am a purist. But now after, I'm pushing 40, I can't really play that much. My knees and ankles, hips a bit are beat up. So I turned to coaching. And I work for a nonprofit called Soccer in the Streets here in Atlanta. And I coach disadvantaged Hispanic kids, the kids that should be up in the top rungs getting looked at to play the game, but most of the time, unfortunately, are overlooked.
The kids that the Mexican leagues are beating us to, from what I understand.
Absolutely, they are. They choose to go back to Mexico, where their parents are from, rather than, they have no interest in the MLS. And who would that can play at any real level that, has an opportunity to go elsewhere? Yeah. I mean, that is what it is. Love it, hate it, whatever. I mean, Herculez Gomez, prime example.
Yeah.
He can play at Santos Laguna level. Why would he play for the MLS? Maybe he gets seen and poached over to Europe, but that's neither here nor there. My focus right now is really on how backwards the youth system is in the United States. It is as segregated as the day is long. If anything was ever segregated, it's the footy in the United States. And to me, it's a travesty. We would have a much stronger national team if our youth system was not so segregated. But anyway, before I go on a complete rant, I'll leave it there for a moment.
No, you're doing great, man. Well, anyway, thanks for all of that. I think it goes to, we have 3 different backgrounds here. All of us really much, well, actually 4 different if you count myself, but all of us very much into the idea of open leagues, unlimited clubs. Right. And the way I wanted to go into this is pose several questions in order about open leagues and your thoughts on it. In the United States. And I also wanted to state that with WFN, we're also going to have a few more episodes on this subject, including one with the proponents of the status quo in the United States as it is. And later next month, we hope to create a little friendly debate between the two sides. And that should be pretty fun. But first of all, let's pose the first question, and I'll get each one of you to respond. But simply, on this first one, what appeals to you about the idea of promotion and relegation? And Ted, I'll start with you.
For me, it's pretty straightforward. The math and the research and the history is abundantly clear on this. Closed soccer leagues do not accommodate unlimited clubs. If you have a closed top-flight soccer league of unlimited clubs, it fails. And it fails every time. Without unlimited clubs, we cannot stand toe-to-toe with the rest of the world on a club level. And frankly, probably on a national team level as well. But that is the basic, hardcore, inconvenient truth for a lot of people out there. And until that's what I'm trying to get through to folks, and I think that's a really good first step. But that's what fires me up. It's the unlimited clubs and how they're required to take us to the next level.
Right. And Matt, let's move to you. What appeals to you about the idea of promotion and relegation in the United States?
There's 2 things really, and first I'd like to kind of touch on what Ted said. When you have unlimited clubs, the way that the MLS is set up right now, the franchise system pretty much dictates, which regions, which markets have the clubs, and that kind of hinders certain areas from being able to take players to become professional, to keep clubs from looking in other parts of the country that, you may have the next great player, but, if let's say you're down in South Georgia or something like that, you don't have a professional team in that area. Maybe if you had the unlimited club type of system, and you had the club, regardless of what level in the tier it's in, they take that player and he's able to get spotted. So I like the aspect of having all sorts of clubs around the country because, A, that gives fans something in every market to look at, and second, it helps players get noticed. And the other aspect I like about it is more of a sporting aspect, and it's when you have these closed systems, the only excitement really at the end of the season is for the playoff races. When you get relegation, involved with everything, that gives the clubs who, in the MLS at the end of the season, when they're out of the playoff race and there's absolutely nothing to play for and really no point in going to the stadiums, when they're having to fight against relegation, there's always something to play for, and it adds interest to a whole nother aspect of the table at the end of the season. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. I share that one too, especially at the end of the season. What are some of the most exciting races? It's the fight against relegation.
Yep.
Some of the most exciting football you'll see is down at the bottom of the table. You don't get that in a closed system, like you say. So it's interesting. Jay, let's get your thoughts on this. What appeals to you about promotion and relegation?
Where to begin? Some people would call me a Euro snob, Anglophile, whatever.
I get that a lot.
You follow a Division II U.S. club. You're a Euro snob, like you are so not a Euro snob.
It's the tag, though. That's the tag.
Yeah, I know. But, I mean, how many D2 supporters are out there? I mean, to call D2 supporters a Euro snobs is just, it's epic. It's one of those epic MLS-isms.
Well, I mean, we have to remember, I mean, my club here in Atlanta, it is my local, and I support it. There was only one game that I haven't attended in 2 years since they've been back, and that's because, my FC Aztec lads were playing. Outside of my son, those kids are probably the next important thing to me. But what promotion relegation does is, it keeps the league fresh. MLS is stale. I know who's going to be there next year. I mean, let's look at it. Footy is the most popular sport in the world. You can play it on gravel. You can play it on concrete. You can play it on grass. You can play it, you can damn near play it in the middle of the forest. I mean, seriously, you can play it anywhere. All you need is 2 people and a round ball. And to not utilize that, I mean, just think about if every youth club, every major youth club, and we all have them in our town, and they generate lots of cash because they're charging, the Caucasian middle class an obscene amount of money for their children to wear their badge on their shirt and not really teaching them much of anything. But imagine if all of those clubs had a U20 team or something that played in regional leagues, and that was one tier of the system, but that team could potentially move up,
right,
and spread the youth, because every little kid in America puts their foot on a football at some point. I mean, that's just the way that it is. Maybe you got some southern Georgia town or southern Alabama where they only have the throw ball, but I mean, basically everywhere has soccer, everywhere, and to not utilize that, I mean, it's almost, it almost seems conspiratorial to me that it has not grown more than it has, and I think it's really funny that our federation seems very complicit in this and does not tell USL, NASL, MLS, you three in particular are going to work together. If you don't work together, we're yanking the sanction on all of you. I mean, it's a
shame that a game that's defined by accessibility, that anybody can play anywhere, we're taking and walling off and putting in a system that locks it down into some kind of weird derivative of soccer it's different from the rest of the world. I mean, I think that accessibility element runs through soccer, and I think it's unbelievably important to the status of the game in the world that it does. And that part of that accessibility is promotion and relegation. You may only have a pub team, but at the end of the day, there's no bureaucracy in England that's saying, you could move up to EPL, if the chips fell where they may, if everything worked out perfectly. I mean, maybe there's no chance in the world, but it could happen. And there are plenty of stories around the world where it does happen. And that accessibility is just, it runs through the game. And it's interesting, too, that whole goal line technology issue. I had a hard time even saying goal line technology is getting behind it because, you want the same game everywhere. You want the same game that's being played on a dirt patch in Somalia that's being played in the Champions League. There's something important about that and something very authentic about it and something that marks this sport as different from a lot of the sports in the USA, where rules change, where there are different leagues and they're all segregated, and it's basically a caste system, and you saw with the NFL refs, you can't even trade refs around in football without nightmares occurring. So it's a core component of soccer to keep this game the same everywhere it's played, and it sells and it works, and by being the most popular sport in the world, I don't think you can divorce that from the way it's run, from that accessibility that's at the core of how it's run.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's completely open-ended around the world, but here it is very exclusive. And to Hooligan's point, that follows a pattern all the way down to the youth clubs. They're very exclusive and not open to everyone. And, you look at the makeup of FC Aztec Hooligans kids. That there's a very specific demographic. I won't get into the details, but there's a very specific demographic that if they're not on this team, they wouldn't have a chance other than playing in the park.
So, Hooligan, you think that coaching decisions are sometimes made based on the portfolios of parents?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's a no-brainer. I don't know if it goes down to the coaching level, but it's
pretty darn close.
It's one of these things. A lot of, not very many people would do what I or the other coaches involved with soccer in the streets will do. I get paid something, but I mean, it's not like, as they say, it's not like I could quit my day job, so to say. But I'm okay with that. I'm doing it for the love of the game, not for the money that it's putting in my pocket.
Right. Well, I tell you what. Let's move on to the next topic here, because this is what we get back from this objection. In this next question is what we get back from a lot of proponents of the closed leagues, and it's, what do you say to those that say Americans are not ready for promotion and relegation? I hear that a lot. Matt,
I'm raising my hand. But Matt,
hold on, Ted. Let's start with Matt. Let's get Matt's response to that.
Well, when I hear that, part of me doesn't really even understand what that even means. To be honest, the way I look at it, there are basically two groups of people, soccer fans in America, and that's, you have your MLS fans who, I guess they are opposed to the open league system, and saying that America isn't ready for it is just their way of saying I don't want it here. And then there's the people like us who, appreciate the system that's used all around the world, and we're definitely ready for it. So I don't know what the whole ready thing is all about. To me, it's either do you like the system or do you not like the system?
Yeah.
And if you like the system, as a fan, you can be ready for it whenever. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. Jay, let me get your response. I know Ted is chomping at the bit on this one, but Jay, let's get
I'm
you.
Turning my mic off.
It's one of those things of, again, unfortunately, I mean, me personally, if you're an NFL person, and I don't even want to sit next to you in the ground, I don't want you around me. If you're a part-time fan, I mean, and I'm sorry to be such a zealot, but I mean, I am a soccer geek. I mean, let's call it what it is. And that's part of the thing with the closed system, is some bizarre attempt to appeal to your MLB or your NFL person. I mean, I don't even want them around my game.
It's disgusting.
Because they don't get it. And it's okay with me that they don't get it. They have their game. Go stay over there with your game. Let me have mine. Let me have what I recognize, that I can go from North Africa to North Asia to South Asia to Europe to South America. And the systems, with a few adjustments here and there, are basically the same. I recognize it everywhere until I come to the United States. And then it's unrecognizable in regards to what it is in the rest of the world. And I just cock my head and go, why is that? Maybe because there's an NFL guy running the MLS who's great at marketing, but he knows nothing about footy. And the other thing is, all these foreign people, we're a country of immigrants. They would start coming out to footy.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't see so many, pale faces in the crowd if it was something that they recognized. But they don't even bother because they don't recognize it. And there's no promotion, relegation. Why bother? It's not exciting. We know we don't need to go to games. My team's going to be there next year anyway.
Yeah, I mean, let me bring Ted in on this one. What do you say to those who say Americans are not ready for promotion and relegation?
If you take anybody off the street and you explain this system to them, and I do, believe it or not, like I will engage anyone in this conversation, NFL fans, anyone. No, everybody understands this system. You don't need a PhD to get it. And people relate to it because it's part of their daily experiments. I mean, you get relegated from your job if you don't do a good job. If you watch reality TV, if you watch Survivor, if you watch any of that, you understand the basic tenets of relegation and the drama that goes around it. Mm-hmm. It's not. I find the people that are throwing out this cultural imperative are generally it's generally cover for an argument that goes something like, if we adopt promotion and relegation, soccer will cease to exist in the United States. We cannot do that system because our owners will not tolerate the risks involved. And I'm sorry, but I only get that argument from people who have that agenda. And I think it's genuine, and they may really believe that soccer is on a precipice, and the only way it survives is under these special MLS rules, and without them, it'll just poof and disappear like NASL or ASL or any of the myriad other leagues that came before MLS. And but people don't have that. It's not a cultural, Americans understand promotion and relegation. They face it in their everyday lives, and they would appreciate seeing it in American pro sports. No doubt in my mind. Yeah. Not only would they appreciate, it's marketable. You could sell the crap out of it.
And it's unique. I mean, how would you like to be the only major league in the United States who has it? What a marketing tool.
That's what people want to come to me and say, well, why aren't you promoting, why don't you just talk about this with all American sports? And Grant Wall came in and wrote a few months ago an article, maybe a year ago now, about how all American sports should pick up promotion relegation, how it's just that, the drama's real and it's compelling, and gee, how great it would make everything if we – no, I want soccer to reap the benefits of this system. I don't want – sure, maybe it would be great for baseball, but no, I mean, this could really work for soccer, and this could be the shot in the arm. This could be the shot in the arm that sends soccer over the edge. The edge.
And see, the difference here, guys, is that the reason the NFL and the NBA and these leagues work in a closed system is they are exclusive, really. I know that they play basketball overseas, and there's a smidgen of football here and there and baseball and stuff, but largely the teams that play in the United States play in the United States in a cocoon. They're in a silo, and there is no mixing and no sharing. Soccer is completely different.
And they can do that, Dre, because they dominate their sports.
Exactly.
And I think there's something involved with that premise, and I think that's a really solid hypothesis that doesn't get out there enough, that, NFL does great, NBA great, NHL great, and is it really a coincidence that those three leagues basically dominate each one of their sports? I think that there's some connection there, and I think that soccer, unless you think MLS is going to drive every soccer league in the world out of business like NFL has with football, it boggles my mind that you just want to throw it into the same business model. But hey, that's just me.
We need to take a short station break now, but don't go away. We'll be back with more discussion on open leagues in the United States after these short messages. Pot Hunting, the source for authentic American soccer wear. Pot Hunting was formed in 2010 with one simple mission: Patch holes in a century of American soccer history, one t-shirt at a time. It is a tale of amazing clubs and world-class players. It features an Open Cup competition second only to the English FA Cup itself. It is filled with political strife, hostile takeovers, and world travel and international intrigue. Myth has it that pro soccer arrived in the U.S. about the same time as the NFL's Super Bowl. In reality, U.S. pro soccer thrived long before the Depression-era Dust Bowl. Join pot hunting and rediscover the lost heritage of soccer in the United States. Pot hunting, the source for authentic American soccer wear.
We are full-service photographers here at Images Frozen in Time. We offer beauty portrait sessions with all the glamour of a professional makeover. Our maternity and baby portrait sessions creatively capture those special family milestones. Baby showers, bridal showers, family reunions, and weddings are only to name a few of the events that we can help you capture. Let us professionally capture each and every moment of your special family moments so that they will forever be treasured as your family's images frozen in time. Give us a call today at 678-900-8317. Don't let those moments be lost forever, and let Images Frozen in Time be your photographers for life.
Welcome back to this special edition of the WFN Weekly Podcast. Thanks for staying with us. We'll now return to the discussion.
This is probably the most infuriating point that's brought up that's completely false and a myth. What do you say to those who say, hey, the business model in the United States is not ready for promotion and relegation. We can't make it work financially. Jay, what do you say to those people?
I say you're wrong. I do, as I've had this conversation with some people, I do concede some points because they bring up areas that I haven't necessarily looked at. But I think overall, when you have Chevy government motors putting however obscene amount of money into Man United, you have just about every major club in England now owned by an American, maybe minus Chelsea. Come on, don't tell me it won't work. I mean, Budweiser sponsors a league. Capital One sponsors, what was the Carling Cup. Don't tell me American business doesn't get it.
Coors was the kit sponsor of Chelsea in the 70s. I mean, American business has been playing this forever.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And the whole thing is you got investors at the top. Call it, socialist if you want to call it socialist. I don't really care. But you got guys at the top that made huge investments. I get it. And now they don't want to share. They don't want the chance of watching, their, $40 million investment go down to D2 because they didn't buy the right footballers or they didn't hire the right gaffer. And that's, to me, that's what makes the European and South American sport fun, is because there are so many variables. There are very few variables in MLS. And
you can actually watch owners sweat. You can actually watch owners sweat in a promotion relegation. Mark Cuban don't sweat. He gets upset. He don't sweat. I mean, the Mavericks ain't going anywhere. He may get all fired up, but he ain't sweating.
Yeah, and Ted, go ahead continue with your point there.
Look, it's the same thing with any cartel or any monopoly is going to act the same way if you try to confront them with competition. And that's what we've got here. And I know in Frazier versus MLS that the court said that MLS was a monopoly. But still, it's a cartel. They are protected. They are insulated from competition. And any business like that is going to say, gee whiz, my investment is much safer in a closed market, then I don't have to face that kind of real competition. I mean, this isn't it's not weird. But yes, other sports teams, who do dominate their sports have been able to do this and have had some success. MLS, with a Timbers game last week, drew 45,000 viewers on NBC Sports Channel. I mean, that's on a nationwide broadcast. It's hard to find. I mean, Static draws more viewers than that. It boggles your mind. And so you say, well, MLS is working and MLS is surviving. If you can survive on that little interest, for me, that's just a giant sign of a cartel mentality of we're going to control this. And it doesn't matter to us how little interest it gets, and it doesn't matter to us how far we take U.S. soccer. All that matters to us is that we control this, our investments are safe, and that's it. And if you leave it there, you're just you're cutting off your nose to spite your face in the most epic way. It's just basically, for me, it comes down to, does U.S. soccer really think that American soccer is going to rise and fall on MLS? I guess they still do, but I think there are plenty of reasons to start to wonder if they don't. And I think this might be the place to say New York Cosmos. But anyway.
Yeah. Matt, what's your thought on this? Do you have a thought on what you would say to those who say, hey, the business model doesn't really, lend itself to promotion and relegation in this country?
Yeah, the only argument I've really heard is that, owners wouldn't take that risk. And we've pretty much already covered that, but owners take that risk all over the world. I don't understand why that couldn't work here. Yeah, you may have a few owners in the MLS right now that aren't ready for the risk. What's stopping the MLS or the United States Soccer Federation from saying, okay, 5 years down the road, you have 5 years to get your stuff together, then we're going to open the leagues up? There's no reason that it can't work here. It works everywhere else in the world, and no one has really ever given me a good reason as to why it can't work in America. And I don't think I probably ever will hear one.
Yeah.
And even Toronto FC is worth, according to MLS, 90% more than when they purchased it in 2007. That's a 90% return on investment. So even if you do take it to a money side and a pure profit margin, right there there is actually payback that occur. I mean, could you sell Toronto FC out of MLS for a 90% profit into an open league? Because if you could, that's a pretty good return on investment.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you want to bring it down to that money level, I think that gives us ammunition there.
Yeah, and I have to comment here because this one is, like I said before, the one objection that makes me upset, because I work extensively with a team in Northeast Africa, Sunderland Karachi, and this is a very poor team they've just been promoted to the provincial division, which is the fourth tier down from the premiership there in the country. And I'm thinking about this. Here's a team where 2 years ago, the manager went without food for 2 or 3 days because he was trying to pay fees to keep his team in the league. This team is in a financially poor country, financially poor league, and a financially poor team. Yet they somehow have made it work in an open league market there. Most of their finances come from volunteer donations. A lot of them come from England and so forth. But the point being, how can a league and a team like that look at open leagues, make it work, and thrive and flourish, but we can't? That's what I can't get. And the statement that says, well, we're not ready for it, the business model doesn't fit. Just to Matt's point, I've never heard an explanation of what that actually means, because you've never tried open leagues here. You've only tried closed leagues, and it's never worked, Yeah. And so that point really gets under my skin every time I hear it, and I just don't understand why there's never people just believe it. They don't really challenge it, and I think that's a tragedy. But
absolutely,
more people are challenging it every day, though. I mean, I really believe that, and it does leak into mainstream media more than ever before, and that keeps me going anyway.
Yeah, well, that's why we have this podcast. I mean, like I said, I met Matt basically through a YouTube video, and Matt, let me ask you this before I get to the final point. What motivated you to make that video?
Gosh, I don't even know, really. I I've had conversations with friends about the system. Most of my friends they'll get into soccer for the World Cup and maybe for the European Championships, and I'll try to introduce them to the whole open league concept, and they don't really buy into it. They don't seem that interested because, like we've already discussed, they're so stuck on the model that American sports works on. And I just kind of wanted to get my thoughts out there. There weren't that many videos on YouTube, advocating the open league system. So I said, what the heck? I'll give it a shot, and went ahead and made it, put it on there.
Glad you did.
It's really tough out there, Dre. I mean, I've looked back over a century of news articles on U.S. soccer, and there are plenty of them. I mean, especially the New York Times was covered with soccer coverage in the 20s, and they continued all the way through the 50s and the 60s. But you can't. It's mind-boggling how promotion relegation never really entered in any conversation in the mainstream media back then. But although they did cover extensively the European leagues, and they did speak to their audience as if people understood promotion relegation. New York Times and also a lot of the Canadian press definitely were telling these stories and talking about the drama of relegation battles all the way back to the 20s, and people were getting it back then for sure. And maybe that's just because there were so many recent immigrants at that time, but I mean, it's just weird that it never broke over into a discussion of how maybe we could change our model until very recently, and it's only beginning to peek through, but still.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you bring that up, Ted, because ESPN FC, or what used to be SoccerNet, had a story a few days ago about the popularity of soccer and how it's destined to be one of the major sports in the United States, the second most. And I kept, I kept remembering this statement being made back in the 20s, in the 60s and 70s. and now we're starting to hear it again. It's the same argument over and over again. And I was like, wow, it's almost word for word what they said back in the 20s.
You run into it everywhere. In the 20s, it's the same. I pulled an article off the Times a couple of days ago that said, and you can find it in the Twitter feed, it said, I mean, the head of the ASL back then was saying, well, we don't really think we can eclipse American football, and we certainly don't think we can, go after baseball in terms of popularity. I mean, it's the same talking points back in, when the Model T existed that they're still dragging out today. Oh, we don't think, we're not going to compete with NFL or Major League Baseball. We need to make sure we can find a niche and, exploit what we have here. It's like, why? It's just deja vu.
Yeah, but you know what? Back in the 20s, arguably the ASL, when it was around, they were probably drawing. I think the only other sports that were drawing more or had more interest during that time was baseball and college football.
Right. Pro sports, certainly baseball only got more coverage. I mean, they were sharing headlines and column space with baseball. I mean, ASL was right there.
Yeah, Bethlehem still, all these teams, they were very popular and everything. And so
today, more people in Barcelona know who Archie Stark is than in Beantown. I mean, because if you don't know, Messi broke one of Archie Stark's 80-year-old records over the summer, and Archie Stark got more play in Barcelona than he did here in the United States.
I did a story on Archie a few weeks ago, and I can't tell you how many people said, who's that? There was soccer in the United States in the 20s. And it's like, wow, it's like a lost history. And that's why I'm very...
For me, that's such a huge component, too. And it's not just to sell T-shirts, but we can... I mean, the most fun thing about a transition to promotion relegation is to tie together that history and take our D1 all the way back. And you start to see that MLS resurrecting, names like Timbers and Sounders, that's just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, you take it all the way back to the 20s, and I mean, there were 5 or 6 attempts to resurrect New York Hakoah, and that Hakoah name was a very key brand in the early 20s and keeps coming back. I mean, connecting that history will be just phenomenal, and it'll blow a lot of people's minds, and it'll really, it's just another one of those huge marketing opportunities that it's just sitting there waiting to be utilized.
Yeah, because I think even on our MLS podcast that we had that I moderate, you know, I keep hearing this phrase, well, soccer's still new in the United States. And it's like, wow, you know, it's throughout all the articles you've written, all the podcasts we've had, and I still hear that soccer is new when we started before 1900. So it's very frustrating to hear that. But let me move on to the last point here. And, you know, it's a subject we'll continue to, of course, discuss. But I want each one of you to make a case for why promotion and relegation is actually good for American soccer. Ted, let me start with you.
For me, it goes back to the same thing I started the show with. You know, unlimited clubs are such a key component of the narrative of soccer. You can't lop off Real Madrid. You can't lop off Manchester United from soccer history. It just those clubs have played key roles and will continue to play key roles. And that global market isn't going to change. Unlimited clubs are going to continue to play the most overt, important roles in this game for the time being. And there is virtually no way, despite MLS's attempts, that MLS and NFL guys are going to win the day on this. They're not going to be able to go into Europe and go into the rest of the world and say, you need to limit your clubs just like we do in order so you can maybe snag a profit out of this deal. The supporters are not going to let them do that. So in order to get unlimited clubs, you have to get to promotion and relegation, because closed leagues, the failure rate of closed top flight soccer leagues of unlimited clubs is 100%. It's 100%. You cannot get to closed leagues. There's no historical precedent for getting an unlimited clubs to thrive in closed leagues. And without those unlimited clubs, we're not going anywhere as a soccer nation.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt, let me get your thoughts on that. How could you make a case for how promotion and relegation is good for American soccer?
Well, first of all, what I said earlier, in terms of the season, you're going to add that extra bit of excitement at the bottom end of the table for the relegation battles. Any of us that, you know, watch the Premier League or the Bundesliga or La Liga or anything like that, they understand what that brings to the table, that extra bit of excitement at the end of the season. The second thing is you're going to add more fans in 2 different ways. First of all, that's going to be adding fans throughout the cities in the country that don't have teams now that would add teams, such as myself. You know, myself, I live in Tallahassee, Florida. There's no way we're going to have a team right now with the franchise system that operates. But,
right.
You know, if you open up that system, we get a club. I don't care if we're in the 5th division of the Southeast region. I'm going to be going to some games. I'm going to be taking this thing seriously. And to touch on a little bit that ESPN article you were talking about with soccer gaining popularity.
Right.
Part of the popularity is all these fans, the so-called Euro snobs, a term I despise, but you know, part of these fans are the people that don't care about MLS because they are, you know, like myself, they're focused on the European leagues. And if you open up the system and mirror what's going on over there, bring it over here, you're going to be gaining more fans that way. So
yeah,
that is my.
That's a very good point. Very good point.
And I think, Dre, one of the things that gets lost in here too, and I didn't touch on it, but I want to make sure I do.
Yeah.
Is that I don't know of any better way to incentivize investment in lower divisions than promotion and relegation.
Absolutely.
Nobody's ever come to me with a better way to get people to throw money at lower divisions than saying, you play well, you can go up. That's huge. And a key on one of Matt's points also, there are too many soccer hotbeds in this country for one league. There are too damn many. There's no way you're going to be able to put them all in. And and maybe there are arguments against promotion relegation in a country the size of New Jersey, like England. But I mean, in the United States, it's a classic case. I mean, you have more markets than one league can serve. And in order to put everybody in that same boat, you break it in divisions. You give everybody a shot at that first division. You have a thriving U.S. Open Cup, and you promote the crap out of that, and you run with it, you know. And that's it. Makes it, to me, it almost makes more sense to do this in the United States than any other country in the world.
Yeah, it would be incredible, the potential. Jay, let's get your thoughts on it.
You know, I mean, I've heard everything from, you know, well, the money's not out there. You know, if the Silverbacks were to go up, how do they travel to L.A.? How do they travel to Portland? Well,
the Silverbacks are going nowhere without a payroll that dwarfs travel expenses. That's what people just. That's that argument gets so bizarre to me. It's like you ain't going to get promoted if you play in a high school stadium and your payroll is $17,000. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen.
Well, here's the thing. We already travel to Canada, to the middle of Canada. We already travel to Puerto Rico. So, again, I'm scratching my head going, what's the problem with going to L.A.? I mean, how many games to the MLS? Don't we already play 28 games?
Yeah.
In the lower, what do they play, 32 up there?
I mean, from the tundra to the Caribbean, NASL is pretty damn big.
Well, right, you know, and
yeah, that's why I don't understand the argument.
I hear this, and it just, I go, you spread the opportunity for advertisers. You make the ability for these little nothing clubs to form partnerships in the community. You know, you take a club like Athletic Bilbao in Spain. They don't have, besides their one striker, I mean, almost the entire team are local kids that started, you know, in their U17, and they've raised up. I mean, you look at UNAM down in Mexico. You know, that's a university team. They start them young and raise them up. I mean, Atlas down in Mexico. It really, for me, it all starts at the youth. If all these clubs have the youth that the rest of the world has at their clubs, promotion or relegation becomes well, it's already a non-argument to the four of us, but it really becomes a non-argument because you have it from, you know, almost cradle to grave, so to say, with each club. And there's no excuse not to have it because all the clubs have the footballers to do it. I mean, as it stands right now, you know, you got to come through some elite youth club, then go to an elite university before you can get into MLS. And if by some chance you weasel your way into MLS and you don't come from some kind of stock, then they're going to bounce you out. They may let you stick around for a little while, but they're going to bounce you out if you're American. Now, if you're foreign and you made somewhat of a name somewhere else, they might keep you for a little while.
Which is funny that works against the development of the game domestically as far as the youth.
I just heard yesterday I listened to a great podcast, Pitch Invasion, Dunmore and Peter Wilt. They did an interview with Bob Foose, the player representative for the union, for the MLS Players Union. The thing he was most proud of was the program that they assembled for, you know, transition into post-MLS life. He said, you know, these players in MLS aren't making enough money to retire at 35, and one of the key things that we need to do to keep them in MLS is to provide some kind of structure to get them out of MLS and back into some kind of regular job. And right there, I think you get a pretty good idea of, I mean, that's not a huge concern for NHL players or NBA players. And a lot of people out there are saying, you know, oh, well, MLS is going to pass NHL and NBA. Well, NBA and NHL players can many of them actually retire at that age. They don't need to worry about this transition back into the working world as if what they're doing isn't serious and isn't hard work enough.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think we all see it for what it is. To me, it just very much comes across like a money-making scheme. I mean, and good for them. They're getting over on a bunch of people, and they're making a lot of money.
Yeah.
Good for them. You know,
But they're making it out of Soccer United marketing, which then you say, well, if you're making all your cash off Soccer United marketing by promoting international matches and by marketing international matches, why not just let the league go? Why not just transition out? Why insist on continuing to put this in this closed container when you're not even making money off MLS per se? You're making most of your cash off marketing international games right now.
Yeah.
Like, let it go.
well, I mean, again, it'll go back to, Americans can't understand it. I mean, and it goes to, my stepfather, not my real father, who understands footy. Last season, watching the Arsenal, and Yossi was on, and I said, yeah, Yossi's a chav. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, well, he's on loan to us from Chelsea. And he goes, what do you mean? Your competitor loaned you a player? Yeah. And American sports models don't get that. It's like, why would you not want one of your top players to get playing time? So if you do have to recall him from loan, he's ready to go. He's been playing.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
to where it makes total sense, to an American throwball fan, that's outrageous to them. Why would you do that?
Yeah. Well, guys, these are all good points. We're going to continue this subject on into the next few weeks and the next few podcasts. But that's all the time we have for this particular segment of the WFN Weekly Podcast special insert, I'll call it. We'll continue the subject, as I say, and include a debate with those who maybe don't agree with us. And we'll get that produced next month. So until then, thank you for listening and have a great week.